Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Hard Count podcast. And today we're going to be going over my Week 7 NFL Power Rankings. We just finished up a very exciting Week 6 of NFL football. We had Monday Night Football last night. Let's get started here with my bottom team, the New York Jets. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about these bottom teams because I think we all know they're bad. I think we all know they're not going to make the playoffs, but I will say some things about each team. And the Jets are awful. I mean, Sam Darnold needs to get out of there. I would love to see him go somewhere else. Adam Gase is the worst coach in the NFL by far. He needs to be fired. This defense doesn't have anything on it that's promising. I don't know what else to say about the Jets. They're just awful, awful, awful. A tier below everyone else in the NFL. At number 31, we've got the Washington football team. I moved them down a spot last week below the New York Giants, who they played this week, and we're going to talk about them in a second. But I was not impressed by the Washington football team. Their offense can't move the ball whatsoever. The defense has not looked great. Yeah, they put Kyle Allen back at starter. I like that. That's what I said they should do in last week's video. But it's just a disastrous team. There's nothing really going for the Washington football team at the moment. Then at number 30, as we just talked about, is the New York Giants. I moved them up a spot over Washington last week because I thought their offense was slightly more explosive, slightly better, and I think that was proved true last week. I mean, we saw Daniel Jones make a couple of great throws, but Daniel Jones just needs to get out of there. That offensive line is awful. He made some great passes in that game. He does make a few mistakes here and there, but he can't really overcome the surroundings that he has in New York right now, and the defense has not been as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's still pretty bad defensively. Just a very bad team at number 30 in the New York Giants. At number 29, again, staying at number 29. I'm not going to be talking about these teams that don't move too much at the bottom because we all know they're bad, and Jacksonville is one of those teams. Yeah, it was a rough week for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I did predict the Lions to have a bounce-back week, and that was because the Jaguars were so bad. Minshew is not the future. He looked good for the first couple games. This team is in the race for a quarterback for sure. Maybe we can see Trey Lance going to this team, maybe even Justin Fields, but right now, they're not where they need to be. I mean, we have seen Keelan Cole step up on that offense, but the defense is not good enough, and the offense can't move the ball quite well enough. It's just not a good team in the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do think they're better than the Giants and Washington, though. I think they have more potential on offense, and the defense isn't quite as bad. At number 28, dropping down 4 spots, is the Dallas Cowboys. And if you told me at the start of the season that Dallas was going to be at 28 by week 7, I would have told you were crazy. But here we are after a terrible, terrible Monday Night Football appearance against the Arizona Cardinals. I think we see how valuable Dak Prescott was to his team. Dak Prescott obviously doesn't want to see the Cowboys lose, but he's smiling somewhere inside knowing that he's going to get his money whenever the Cowboys can give him the chance, because we just saw how valuable he is to that team. And I think a part of that was Andy Dalton just playing awfully. He was very, very bad all game. And this went from being one of the best passing attacks in the NFL to being the worst, or one of the worst, with Andy Dalton in that offense. So just not a good team. Yes, there's talent on it, but right now the defense has so many dysfunctional parts on it, in that back end especially. I mean, we've seen offenses just tear this up through the course of the season, and the Cardinals was no different, dropping 38 points. They even allowed Kenyon Drake to do well. That's not a good sign if you're a defense. So yeah, Cowboys dropped down 4 spots. Very disappointing start for Andy Dalton. I didn't think it would be too bad because we've seen him with some good supporting casts in the past, but it was not good. Cowboys dropped down 4 spots, and they're at number 28. Dropping down 3 spots, and at number 27, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. I had them at 24 the week before after getting beat by the Ravens. But now they dropped down another 3 after blowing a great start to the Indianapolis Colts. We'll talk about the Colts later. And I think that they should have lost this game, but you can't blow leads like that. I think that's a good representation of what we know about the Cincinnati Bengals. They're just not a good organization, a good football team. You know, Joe Burrow has impressed me, but the offensive line is a mess. The defense really, really struggles outside of Jesse Bates, who's playing well at safety. And the defensive line sometimes makes some plays, but I'm not a fan of much on that defense. And Joe Burrow needs some help. I mean, T. Higgins did shine, but this offensive line is awful. And we know in the NFL, offensive lines are hugely important. We see with multiple teams in the league, when their offensive line regresses or it's not there, teams really tend to struggle. So the Bengals need to get a lot fixed soon. I don't want to see Joe Burrow have another great career wasted in Cincinnati. So yeah, the Bengals drop down 3 spots. At number 26, we have the Denver Broncos moving up 2 spots here. Surprising win against the New England Patriots. I don't think it would happen most of the time, but they got Drew Lock back. They got the win. That's what matters the most. And it does concern me a little bit that they weren't able to get into the end zone at all through the entire course of the game. Obviously, not a good thing. Drew Lock actually played pretty well. He made some very good throws throughout the course of the game. And I know I've said this multiple times. You guys may be sick of me saying it. I've said that Drew Lock is really the main factor in how well Denver does this year because they've got talent. Yes, Cortland Sutton is out. But if Drew Lock can step things up, this Broncos team can step things up majorly as well. So I liked what I saw from Drew Lock. Yes, he had some ugly turnovers, some ugly plays, but he made a lot of good throws that were promising. Maybe we can see some improvement from this Broncos team in the future. I'm moving them up 2 spots here after an impressive win against the Patriots. Next, we've got the Atlanta Falcons moving up 2 spots here, and they got their first win of the season. Good for them. It was a pretty impressive win against the Vikings team that I was high on last week. This is what I think is such a Falcons thing, though. We saw it last year where they're just abysmal for the first half of the season, for the first 5 games of the season. Then they pick it up a little bit, look good for a game. And I think we all knew this offense was capable. This defense had a good game. I'm not going to take too much away from it. I still think that next week we're going to see a little bit of a coming back down to earth for this Falcons team. And I'm not going to ignore what I've seen for the past couple of weeks in terms of that offense where they really, really struggled. So, this was an impressive win. Don't get me wrong. But we'll see if they can keep it up. For now, I'm only moving up 2 spots. But if they can keep it up, they can definitely move up higher and higher on this list. At number 24, we have the Detroit Lions moving up 1 spot. And, hey, they didn't blow the lead just like the Falcons. They'd blown, I think it was 7 of their last 10 or more point leads, which is awful. But they didn't do it this time. They got the win that I expected them to get. I told you guys last week that the Detroit Lions were going to have a bounce-back week, have a big week against the Jaguars. Detroit was one of my teams that I said was a sleeper playoff team at the start of the year. A team that was going to outperform expectations, and it wasn't looking like it, but I think we saw this week they're bouncing back. We get to see them play the Falcons next week, and I think that is a pivotal game for the Lions. Very, very important game for them, as they're right now 2-3. They can move to 3-3 and put themselves in a spot where they're able to play it for contention in the playoffs. And as I said, I don't think the Lions are looking like the team that I quite expected them to be going into the year, but if they were to turn it around, which I think is definitely possible because I think Matthew Stafford is very good, Kenny Galladay has looked very good in this past game, and their defense, I think, is going to get things together. I've said this multiple times. Their defense, after a couple weeks, is going to be able to get things together. They've got a lot of new guys they brought in the offseason, some rookies like Jeff Okudah that they're going to need to step up. I think it's going to take a couple weeks. It's starting to come together, as we saw. They held this Jacksonville offense to only 16 points. And yes, it was Jacksonville, but it was still a good sign. So I think we're definitely seeing Detroit kind of emerge here. I like them to have a little bit of a bounce back second half of the season. And maybe if they really start performing well, get that 7th spot in the playoffs in the NFC. At number 23, we have the Carolina Panthers moving down 4 spots here after not a good loss to the Bears. And the Bears are 5-1. I'm not going to take that away from them. But the Panthers, we were expecting a little bit more. I don't think this Bears team is as good as their record shows. And right now, the Panthers were very close to the Bears in my rankings. So if you're going to be up there, if you're going to be higher than there, you have to beat those types of teams, which the Panthers didn't look like they can do. I think that the Panthers are a team that's going to beat the bottom of the crowd. They're going to beat the worst teams in the NFL, but they might struggle against the top teams a little bit more. It's a very fun offense. We've seen the emergence of Robbie Anderson this year. DJ Moore has looked pretty good as well. Mike Davis has done a great job replacing Christian McCaffrey. We will see the return of Christian McCaffrey in the next couple of weeks. I don't think that makes much difference at all for the Carolina Panthers. Their defense is getting things together. I don't have too much to say about the Panthers. Move down 4 spots here. I think they're a team that's going to beat the bad teams, struggle a little bit more against the good teams. It's a fun offense and a defense that is not great, but getting things together. At number 22, we have the Miami Dolphins dropping down 1 spot here, and I don't think they deserve to drop down a spot necessarily based on how they played. They played well against the Jets, 24-0. I'm not going to take too much away from a Jets win, and I think that they actually looked better in my mind than I thought they were going to look. So it was impressive, but I'm going to say it again. Don't just look at one team's ranking and their plus minus. Look at the bigger picture of things. We'll get to some teams that had to move up more than I thought the Dolphins had to this week. So not to mention, the Dolphins just named Tua Tagovailoa as their starter for this week, which I actually do think hurts them. I think it's a good thing for their future, but just in terms of the present, I don't think it really helps them in terms of their ranking, because I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's veteran experience behind a bad offensive line in Miami was able to, create a couple extra plays, avoid some pressure, avoid some sacks that Tua's not going to be able to, and you're putting him in there with injury risk. I think that it's not a bad move. I don't think it helps them in the immediate future, but I think it definitely does help them in the long term. So I don't hate the move. I don't absolutely love it for the Dolphins. They were getting a little bit hot. Maybe you could have chased down that number 7 seed in the AFC. So it's definitely something to look out for. The Dolphins have a bye this upcoming week, but they play in 2 weeks against the Rams. We'll see how Tua fares against Aaron Donald in that defensive line. Should be maybe a rough start for him in the NFL. Welcome to the NFL, Tua. But yeah, that's all I have to say about the Dolphins. At number 21, we have the Minnesota Vikings dropping down 7 spots. I was too quick to jump to the conclusion that Minnesota was back to the Minnesota that we all thought they were last year. I moved them up all the way to 14, and they're dropping down 7 spots here. I hate to do it. I loved what I saw from them in the past couple weeks, because it was looking like the team we all knew and expected coming into the year. They almost beat Seattle. It came down to the wire, and their defense started picking things up as well. So I loved what I saw from Minnesota in the past couple weeks, and they just let us down. We talked about the Falcons a little bit earlier, and the Vikings just really, really struggled in this past game. I'm not ready to drop them down much more than this. I still think there's a lot of bright spots on this team, and I think it's going to be a team that's going to be inconsistent throughout the year. We'll see. Kirk Cousins has not played well. I think he's holding this offense back at the moment. He has the weapons. He's got a good offensive line. Justin Jefferson is playing like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL at the moment. Adam Thielen looks good. Just that whole offense looks good. Kirk Cousins needs to step things up, and I think that's an inconsistent thing. You don't know when that's going to happen. I think that's going to definitely hinder this team's success in the future. So, yeah, that's about the offense. And then the defense, there's a lot of injuries on that defense. We might be seeing some guys get shipped around at the trade deadline. We'll see. I think that the Vikings right now are in a place where I'm not sure about them. They're going to be inconsistent through the rest of the year. And you never know. They could show up and beat a very good team, or they could show up and lose to a very bad team, as shown last week against the Atlanta Falcons. So they dropped down 7 spots. And then at number 20, we have another big dropper. The biggest droppers of the week, actually, the Cleveland Browns, dropping down 9 spots. And I'm going to say it, the Browns should consider benching Baker Mayfield. He is holding back this offense significantly. He's playing his worst football that he's ever played this year. I think it's time to the Browns to really be thinking about their future, because Baker is not it. He has not looked like it whatsoever. The 2 teams that I think that they've played that are actually good, the Steelers and the Ravens, they've gotten crushed by 38-6 versus 38-7. Just terrible. They collapse when they play any sort of a good team whatsoever. And they're going to feast on bad teams and very bad teams. So I've not loved what I've seen from the Browns at all. And as I said, Baker Mayfield is really limiting this offense. They've got a great run game. I've liked what I've seen from Stefanski this year as an offensive play caller. He's done a good job. They've got Odell and Jarvis Landry, still very good talents at the wide receiver position. Their defensive line is very, very stout as well. Their offensive line is looking good. What's the problem? It's Baker Mayfield. Why can they not put up points? Yes, the Steelers defense is good, But we saw the week before the Eagles offense, which is all beat up with not much talent. Carson Wentz carried this Eagles offense almost with Travis Fulgham as the lead receiver to put up 29 points. So it's not like the Steelers defense is groundbreaking or anything. So I think it's time for the Browns to start thinking about their future, move on from Baker Mayfield. And yeah, that's what I have to say about the Browns. I was very disappointed moving down 9 spots here. At number 19, we have the Houston Texans moving up 4, and they're going to steadily move up this thing. I had them going 10-6, and they're 1-5 at the moment, so not the brightest prediction on my part, clearly, but I think they're looking pretty good. They very easily could have won that game against the Titans. The overtime rules are dumb. They very easily could have won it, and I liked what I saw from the Texans. I mean, Deshaun Watson looked great. And I think this is more the team that I was expecting, a team that's able to move the ball down the field very well with deep plays, get a bunch of big plays here and there. The defense did not look good, but this Tennessee offense has looked very good. We'll talk about them a little bit later. So I liked especially what I saw from the Texans offense. Deshaun played great. So yeah, I like what I saw from the Texans. They move up 4. At number 18, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, staying put at 18. They gave the Ravens a little bit of a scare there. I will say that as a Ravens fan, I was nervous there at the end. They did not make that 2-point conversion at the end. But Carson Wentz, once again, leading this group of beat-up players on that offense, now having 2 starters that are going to be playing next time they hit the field. Carson Wentz, to me, was impressive in that game, leading this offense once again that's so beat up. The run defense is great. We saw them really shut down that Ravens rushing attack, except for Lamar Jackson, who's just a freak athlete. He's able to run on most defenses, and the Eagles couldn't stop him. They were no different. But their secondary looked okay, did not look great. They were letting up some plays here and there. I was relatively impressed by this defense, though. They did let up 30 points, but there was a lot of points in the game where I think they did a very good job, and it was against the Ravens offense that has been good through this season. So I was impressed by some factors of the Eagles. I liked what I saw from some different factors about their game. At the end of the day, they lost the game, though. And yeah, they stay here at 18. At number 17, we have the Las Vegas Raiders staying put here. They didn't play this past week. I'm not going to talk too much about them. I have loved what I've seen from their offense. Their defense is a little bit shaky, but yeah, they stay here at 17. We'll see what they can do this coming week against a very good Buccaneers team. At number 16, we have the Los Angeles Chargers moving down 1 spot. They were on bye this past week. Similar to the Raiders, I don't have too much to say. I've loved what I've seen from Justin Herbert. Their defense has been okay. I think we're going to see them get another win here against Jacksonville next week. Sorry to spoil my pick'em, but yeah, that's all I have to say. And at number 15, we have the Chicago Bears moving up 1 spot here. And, I think a lot of people might be wanting me to move them up even more than that, because they're 5-1. I know it's crazy. No one would have expected that going into the season. I had them going 6-10 on the year. Again, not a great prediction. I think they're clearly going to pass that mark. But I have not been particularly excited about what I've seen from this Bears offense, especially. It's not a good offense whatsoever. Nick Foles is going to be okay. He's going to make some dumb decisions here and there, though. He is a little bit of an upgraded Mitch Trubisky, in my opinion, and that's not good. This offense is still going to limit this team like it did last year. But their defense has been very impressive. I think that was also an issue last year. The defense was not as good as we expected last year, but it has been very good. I think we might see it struggle a little bit more if it faces some better offenses, but they did shut down that Bucs offense, which looked very good this past week against the Packers. We'll talk about them a little bit later. I just want to see this Bears team be a little bit more consistent on offense and start playing some better competition throughout the course of the year. I know it's hard to have them only at 15 being 5-1, but I want to see them prove themselves a little bit more. At number 14, we have the Arizona Cardinals moving up 6 spots here. And I told you guys that I was buying my Cardinals stock, and I think I was correct in that. I think that they definitely proved that they are the team that we thought they were after week 2 when they were 2-0, as opposed to the team we thought they were after week 5 when they were 3-2 and beat the Jets and stuff like that. So they just came out, had a convincing win over the Cowboys, who this Cowboys team is definitely hurting, but putting up 38 points against anyone is impressive, and holding anyone to 10 points is impressive. I was impressed by this Cardinals team for sure, and I'm moving up here preemptively. I think they are a very good team. I liked what I saw from the defense, especially. I think this offense still has to put things together a little bit. Kyler did not impress me. He's always going to impress me with his legs, but he misses too many throws at the moment for me to be very confident in him. But I did like what I saw from this Cardinals team as a whole, and they get to play a Seahawks team off bye last week, which is a big game for them. If they can come out with a win there, that'll be a huge momentum booster, a huge confidence booster for them. It's going to be a rough matchup, but if Kyler can hit his throws, I like this team. I like this offense. It's definitely a fun team this year. One to look out for certain. At number 13, we have the second biggest droppers of the week, and that is the Patriots. I may have been a little bit too confident in them last week. I had them at 5. They're dropping down all the way here to 13. I was not impressed with what I saw. I think maybe we could have been seeing the Patriots looking a little bit ahead, getting a little bit ahead of themselves as we look forward to this 49ers matchup. But still, it was Bill Belichick off of a semi-bye, and his team did not look good. I mean, it looked good on defense, but all defenses have looked good against this Broncos offense all year. And his offense looked terrible. Cam was not impressive whatsoever to me, and they weren't really able to move the ball. They had some unnecessary turnovers. It was not a pretty sight for this Patriots team. I still think it's good. Any team that has Bill Belichick coaching it, and Cam Newton has looked good overall this year, is going to be a pretty good team, especially with the defense as good as it is. So yeah, I still like New England. It's just I think I was a little bit too high on them. And I don't think that Broncos game is what we're going to see going forward for them. I think they're going to bounce back, be the team that we all think that they are as they play 49ers. Should be a fun game next week. So yeah, Patriots here at 13, moving down 8 spots after a loss to the Broncos. At number 12, we have the Indianapolis Colts moving up 1 here. It looked like they were going to be moving down quite a bit on these power rankings after that abysmal start against the Bengals. I don't know how else to describe it. It was just terrible against the Bengals, but they did come back, and there was some positives to take away from that game for the Colts. Phillip Rivers, who had been an issue for this Colts offense, someone that looked like it was definitely holding them back, looked great in that game. He made some good throws, did not make any bad plays, really. So I liked what I saw from Phillip Rivers, and that was part of the reason that I was lower on the Colts, because of Phillip Rivers. So I liked what I saw from the Colts. Not at the start, but definitely having the resilience to come back, having Phillip Rivers have a big game was definitely important for this team. So I'll move him up 1 spot here. At number 11, we have the Los Angeles Rams, dropping down 1 spot here, moving to 11, just dropping out of the top 10. I was not liking what I saw from the Rams this past week against the 49ers, who definitely impressed me, but this Rams team will be fine. Jared Goff has looked pretty good running what the offense that McVay draws up. These weapons have been decent. They just need to get the run game going back again, as that's really this Rams team's identity. Running the ball and play action with Jared Goff. They need to get back to that. I think they're definitely going to be able to do that. I've loved what I've seen from Sean McVay this year. And this defense is good. We get to see them play the Bears this upcoming week. That should be a fun one. They run into a 5-1 Bears team. They're 4-2. I think they get a win there. We'll talk about that tomorrow with my pick'em. But I like this Rams defense. I think this Rams offense is going to get back on track. So they move down 1 spot. I'm not too concerned about them. But yeah, at number 10, the biggest movers up this week by a long shot, the 49ers moving up 12 spots up into my top 10. And I was talking about how I was too high on the Patriots. I got too low on the 49ers, and I will admit that. I was getting caught up a little bit too much in the moment, forgetting what this 49ers team actually is. They had only beaten the Giants and the Jets, but they just dominated the Rams. I was impressed by that. They move up here 12 spots, which is very, very good. This offense finally getting things together. They got Deebo Samuel back, or they have gotten Deebo Samuel back. Jimmy Garoppolo is back, and I think that he's going to be the starter. He played relatively well this past week. Nothing crazy good, but definitely more like what we have been accustomed to seeing, and able to keep that 49ers quarterback role for himself, the stability that this team needs. You know, this defense is not as good as it was last year, but that is okay. The defense was very, very good last year. It's hard to keep that up. They're not able to get as much pressure, but that's okay. The 49ers will be just fine. I got a little bit too low on them last week. That's my bad. They're moving up 12 spots here. I'm correcting for that. And next week, we get to see them play the Patriots. That'll be definitely a fun matchup. A matchup that is going to tell us a lot about both these teams. At number 9, we have the New Orleans Saints dropping down one spot here. And this has nothing to do with what they did. They were on bye. They couldn't do anything. It's just what's going on around them. A team that I had to move up a couple spots. They will get Michael Thomas back. I think this team is slowly going to get healthy, similar to what I said about the 49ers. It's going to get things together. We saw Drew Brees struggle a little bit at the start. He's looked better in the past couple of games. They play the Panthers this coming week. I think that's a win. The Saints team is going to get back on track. I like them here at 9. They do drop down one spot, but that's not because of them. We'll see what they can do this upcoming week against the Panthers. At number 8, we have the Buffalo Bills dropping down one spot here. They did lose to Kansas City, but I expected that. I think that's what I expected. I didn't expect him to play much better. Josh Allen was not great. He wasn't terrible. He played an average game. Nothing to write home about. This defense is bad. It's very, very bad. It felt like this Chiefs offense could have done more against this Bills defense. It just did not. They tried to run the ball a lot more, and they were able to do that pretty successfully as well. So I'm not a fan of what I've seen from this Bills defense. This Bills offense is not quite as good as we thought it was going to be this coming week. So yeah, the Bills dropped down one spot here. I'm not too concerned about them. I think Allen is still a good quarterback. And this offense is still going to be a good offense for the rest of the year. We've seen Kansas City really expose the weaknesses in a lot of teams in Baltimore. And I didn't change Baltimore's too much in my mind because that loss to Kansas City. It was not a pretty loss, but I didn't drop Baltimore at all. I kept them at 2. I'm not going to significantly punish Buffalo for a game where they definitely could have won it against a team that is arguably the best team in the league right now in Kansas City. We'll talk about them in a little bit. So yeah, I'm dropping Buffalo down one spot. No reason for major concern for this Buffalo Bills team. They will be just fine. They moved down one spot this week. And that leads us to our number 7 team, the Tennessee Titans. I told you guys I was selling my stock on them, and they looked good this past week. Their offense has been on fire. Their defense is not good, I will say that. But Ryan Tannehill has been very, very impressive. Ever since Ryan Tannehill has taken over this Titans team, it has been a very, very good football team. I don't think anyone is denying that at this point. Derrick Henry looking like King Henry out there already, and we know how good he is late in seasons, so that's a very good sign for the Titans. One concern is that defense, as I said, but this offense has been lighting defenses up. No concerns for that offense whatsoever. I think Tannehill, this is sustainable. I had some questions last year. It was such an outlier season in Tannehill's career, but I think that's just a story of Adam Gase being such a terrible head coach. Tannehill comes to the Titans. Mike Vrabel is a very, very good head coach, and we see the difference. Tannehill is a fantastic quarterback. He's a great quarterback. He's a guy you want on your team. He's doing everything right for the Titans right now. I have no doubts about this offense anymore. And this Titans are Super Bowl contenders. I've got them here at number 7. At number 6, we've got the Green Bay Packers dropping down 3 spots here. And that was not a good performance against the Buccaneers. That was concerning for sure. Maybe when the Packers play better competition, they're going to struggle a little bit more. Aaron Rodgers did not look nearly as good as he did for the first couple weeks of the season against much worse defenses. I still think Aaron Rodgers is a very, very good quarterback, and I think the Packers are a good team, a team that is going to compete for Super Bowl when it comes to the wintertime. But that was definitely a performance that I'm not going to sit here and ignore. It was looking like the Packers were the best team in the NFC last week, but they really struggled when they played a better defense. I was able to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and their defense was exposed last week. I mean, I think that was one of my concerns earlier in the season. That's why I was hesitant to move them above, say, the Baltimore Ravens or the Seattle Seahawks. And that was exposed this past week against the Buccaneers, and that was a major concern. They are still here at 6. They are still Super Bowl contenders. I like Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback. He's been playing like one of the best in the NFL. Not this past week. I'm not going to forget what I saw those first few weeks from the Packers where they looked like one of the best teams in the NFL. I got to drop them down 3 spots here because that was definitely a concerning loss to the Buccaneers. And speaking of the Buccaneers, we have them here at 5, moving up 7 spots here. And I was low on the Buccaneers. I had them at 12, and that was because I hadn't seen them beat any competition. They lost to the Bears the week before, and they had not really beaten anyone of note. And so I was waiting for this Packers team. I was waiting to see what is this Buccaneers team really made of. We saw it. Brady steps up in the big moments. He looked great in that game. And, Godwin, all of those weapons looked very, very good. And that this offense is clicking a lot more. This defense is one of the best in the NFL. I would say top 3 defense in the NFL at the moment for me. It's a very good team getting to the quarterback. They're good in the secondary. You can't really ask for much more than that from a defense. And the Buccaneers are giving you all of it. They move up 7 spots here. They just solidify themselves in my mind as contenders. They're going to be a team that nobody wants to play come the winter, as I said with the Packers. Well, all these teams at the top you don't really want to be seeing come January. But the Buccaneers especially are a very dangerous team. They showed that this past week. At number 4, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers moving up 2 spots here. And I've loved what I've seen from the Steelers. Everything I said about the Bucs applies. They're a very, very good team on both sides of the ball. This Steelers offense has really impressed me. It's a surprise offense for me so far. We'll see what they can do against some better defenses, but they've been putting up consistent points with some weapons that have been surprising as well. And Chase Claypool has been very good. Juju, and they're going to be able to get Deontay Johnson back in a couple weeks, which is great for this offense. I thought it was going to be a mediocre offense. That was going to be what was holding this team back. But the defense has taken some steps back, and that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And I've loved what I've seen from the Steelers team overall. They move up 2 spots here. Not too much to say about them. I think we all know what went on in that Browns game. This Steelers team is a very good team. It's been a little bit of a surprise. We'll see if they can win the AFC North over a team we're about to talk about. But at number 3, we have the Seattle Seahawks moving up 1 spot. They didn't even have to do anything, and they moved up 1 spot because of the Packers dropping down 3 spots. But what I will say is Russell Wilson is the clear MVP right now. It's not even close. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had a stinky week, really hurt his MVP odds. I thought he was his biggest competition, Wilson's biggest competition. Patrick Mahomes didn't have a good week, particularly. Josh Allen had a bad week as well. So right now, Russell Wilson is looking like he's going to win his first MVP, and he's running away with it at the moment. He's the leader of the Seahawks offense, which is very, very good. That's the reason they're at 3. Their defense is not good, especially their secondary, and they're not really able to get pressure on the quarterback either. But this offense is just so good, so dangerous. Hard to play against Russell Wilson for any defense. So yeah, I love the Seahawks. They're here at 3. I don't have too much to say. They're off a bye. Russell Wilson is the clear MVP. At number 2, we have the Baltimore Ravens staying here at number 2 after that scary Eagles game that I talked about earlier. It looked like they had it wrapped up at half, 17-0, and then at the end of the third, they had a 24-6 lead. But things got a little scary there for the Ravens in the fourth quarter. They pulled out the win, but I did take away a couple things from this game. One being that the Ravens' rushing game is not nearly as good as it was last year, not nearly as efficient. The loss of Marshall Yanda on the interior offensive line is really, really hurting them at the moment. And it's become clear they couldn't really get things going on the ground like last year. But I will say a positive that came out of this game was Lamar Jackson played very, very well. One of the better games he's had in a while. He was very good passing the ball. He was a good runner as well. They were able to utilize him in all sorts of ways. And Lamar Jackson is much more valuable to the Ravens than he was last year, which is kind of funny because last year he won the most valuable player. I don't actually think that he should have won it. It took me a little while to come around to that. I think Russell Wilson should have won it last year. But again, Lamar Jackson is more valuable to this Ravens offense than he was last year because without Lamar functioning at a high level, this offense is really going to struggle. So that's definitely a concern. But Lamar Jackson is a guy you want to rely on. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And he impressed me last week. The defense was impressive, did kind of fall apart at the end, but I don't think that will happen again. I think that was kind of an anomaly. I don't think it's going to happen week in, week out. And we saw what it can do against the Bengals. And in that first half of the Philadelphia game, I think this is one of the best defenses in the NFL. Not too worried about the Ravens. But it is a little concerning that the run game is not as good as it was last year. Not really even close. At number 1, we have the Kansas City Chiefs staying here. A lot of people moved them away from number 1 last week. Not me. I didn't see any reason why to. I told you guys I was buying the Chiefs stock. They just dominated the Bills. It wasn't a close game. And yeah, they proved me right for keeping them at 1. This defense, as I pointed out in the best bets video I put up on Sunday. It steps up in big moments. We've seen it in the playoffs. We've seen it against the Ravens. We saw it against the Bills. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue. This Chiefs defense might struggle a little bit against, a worse team like the Raiders we saw a couple weeks ago, but it really steps up in the big moments. I'm not totally sure why, but that's just seemingly being a trend for this Kansas City defense. And we know this offense is always going to deliver. It was a little interesting to see them getting the ball moving on the ground a little bit more, maybe trying something new. Could be interesting to see, but we will see. Kansas City at 1, not too much of a question for me at this point. And yeah, I think they're going to stay here for a while. All right, those are my Week 7 NFL Power Rankings. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below if you agreed, disagreed, what you disagreed with. I'd love to hear. And yeah, thanks so much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. As always, until next time, peace.